This is the third tape. This is my magic wand here to turn you off and turn you on. This is the third tape in a series about the Psalms. I've been dealing with selected Psalms. So far I dealt with 1, 2, 4, 8, 10, 11. I think I didn't miss something. And now I want to deal with 19. 19 is basically a rehash of stuff that we already talked about, but here it goes. Remember, I'm just taking selected parts of the psalm, not taking the whole psalm here. So the section I want here is Yom liyom yabia omer. Day to day will express some utterance. V'layla l'layla yichaveh da'at. And night to night will express some idea. Ein omer ve'ein devarim beli nishma kolam. There is no omer, no word coming out, and no without is these two things being heard. In other words, the day and the night element. V'chol haaretz yatsa kavam u'v'kitzei tevel milehem. In all the world, in all the extremes, we have this in the world. These two elements, these two words are coming out. And what are the two words? Remember, we've talked about this before so many times. Day symbol. If I'm referring it to the way I like to think, to the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. So the contact level is I'm aware of this, I'm aware of this, and I'm aware of this. Those are the day elements. Building up network of integrative experiences, starting with little gestalts, weak gestalts, and building them up into strong gestalts. But as we do this, we accomplish, when we work on therapy especially, we run into splits, opposites. This, for example, if I'm working on a thing with my father, after I've worked an hour, a couple hours or something, my father is now, in my experience, a cluster, a whole bundle of 1,000 different gestalts all together, and meanwhile other elements that are somehow me trying to deal with my father are another million gestalts all packed together. So we have, and then there's somehow or other still unfinished business there. So there's the two sides are still pretty far apart, and that gap between them. So the contact element is the day part, and the withdrawal part. When I get to the impasse, I want to close my eyes a lot of times and go inside. Forget about the conflict with my father, and just at this moment, what comes to me, I see an image of a moth flying around. Okay, so that moth suddenly became a new idea out of the void. It has nothing to do, but so far with me and my father, it just popped out of my imagination in the void. So that's the night part. And somehow or other, we need the two parts. So working on the two opposites, on the extremes, the contact part, the day part, we get more and more fragmented, and then we need to go inside to get the balance, the other side. So when it says here, day to day expresses a word. So it's like we're thinking. The way I think of it is two cycles of a bunch of cycles of the dialectic descent. This is a synthesis, descent to get to the ascent, descent to get to the ascent. Each time getting stuck, getting to a new idea, and the new idea brings us up to the next cycle. Well, they say sometimes the next generation. So from one cycle to the next, the contacts are somehow or other expressing something or other. I started off with awareness of just pink here and yellow there or something, and later on, 2 hours later, I'm dealing with awareness of my father's look in my father's eye, or feeling of something in my body, or sadness or joy, or whatever. So the awarenesses become the words, the day parts become more and more integrated, more and more strong gestalts, but they're still on the level of day. So more and more, there are messages somehow being conveyed from one level of the day part to the next level of the day part. So building up. Yeah, the same thing with the night part. One amazing thing about the Gestalt work is if I work with somebody in 3 hours, and let's say the person goes inside 3 times, gets 3 different fantasies, if I look at the 3 fantasies one after the other, a lot of times I could see major insights about how the person's action is developing. What comes to mind is this person I work with. First image, I'm flying over the world, and I'm like a bird. Relatively uninvolved. Second image, I'm acting out all this creative stuff. I'm like flying around, and I'm in my room, I'm just free, I'm imagining and I'm expressing myself very freely. Person is now more involved. Third example, the third image of that person is now, oh, I have this wonderful image of fairies and all kinds of wonderful stuff happening. Then I open my eyes and I realize, oh my God, I have this conflict because all this fantasy stuff like reminds me of my childhood, and meanwhile I have these terrible conflicts in my life. Oh my God, what am I going to do about the bills? I got to move this. What am I having children? Oh, so many things to worry about. It's almost like I'm better off being an ostrich with my head in the sand. I wouldn't know. So again, Lila to Lila, the sequence from night to night to night, there's some kind of message being conveyed. Some kind of building on experiences. Right? So this process of day and night, this ongoing process of contact and withdrawal that a person is capable of doing this process, it's almost like railroad tracks. Two things that need to be happening. If the person stops using the imagination, the actions won't be as rich as they would be otherwise. Okay? And the same thing, night to night, it expresses ideas. The ideas get more and more encompassing. Ein omer ve'ein devarim b'li nishma kolam. There is no words, word of God, no messages developing here without without these two voices, the contact and withdrawal, being heard and balanced. B'chol haaretz yatsa kavam. In every experience, these in the whole land, this line of the two of them, to the ends of the earth, these words are there in everything. In the whole world, the person is building up in their phenomenology of this person's spirit. These two elements need to be there: the contact and withdrawal. The day and the night. Okay, and now the focus shifts here to the person who's doing the process, the person, the actor who's having these experiences. And it says, but it's a metaphor. Again, it's another metaphor. Lashemesh sam ohel bahem. God puts for the sun, Lashemesh for the sun, puts a tent bahem. Puts a tent for them. And the tent is this contact boundary, this phenomenology of the spirit is unfolding. And the sun in this case is the actor. Not as his ordinary everyday self, but as the embodiment of pure action. So what they call in the Kabbalah Metatron, or your inner Moses, or if you're a Christian, your inner Jesus, or your inner Buddha, whatever your trip is. And that part of you is like, the image here is V'hu kachatan yotzei v'chupato yasis kigibor larutz orech. The sun coming up in the morning is like a groom coming out of his bridal canopy here and ready to go, and the ohel is there's the image of the tent. That's exactly the same image we have in the the idea of Moses leaving the camp to go to the tent of meeting, and where leaving the network of deductive logic to go out into the desert of inductive logic and free associations and intuitions. And when that happens, when this actor does do that process, paying proper regard to the day and night elements of it, what happens is ve'ein nistar mechamato. The heat that this action generates, it says here, then nothing is hidden from his sun, or from his heat. The sun symbolized now by the actor's action. Nothing is hidden. In other words, all the negations, all the baloney, all the games are negated. All the negations are negated in order for the action to be completed. As long as a person keeps going properly with the day and the night, the rhythm of the concept, the withdrawal keeps going, eventually all the crud, all the negations and the negations will be burned up, and nothing escapes that is hidden from that heat. Okay, that's a very profound metaphor there. We did that one. We turn over the next page of that 19. Shugiot mi yavid. Mistakes, who's going to understand them? Ministarot nakeni. From these hidden things, clean me up. Gam mizeidim chasach avadecha. From all these tricks, all these devices, all these games, save me. Al yishmalu vi. So they won't control me. Don't let so the person is saying to God, don't let my games, my self-interruptions here interfere with my action. Now, of course, the person doesn't say God. Well, unless you're religious, you might say that. But usually, we don't say that kind of thing. But we do have the idea. The therapist tells the client, we said this so many times already. Identify with the coming solution. Identify. Have faith in that. If I keep going with this process of the day and the night thing, if I keep being this Metatron, this pure actor, this pure inner Moses or inner Jesus or wherever I am, then eventually the interaction, the evolving, emerging new message will somehow negate all those negations. We'll clean a person up. We'll negate all the games so that the games don't prevent the person from completing the action. Okay, it's built in. All right, enough of 2019. 21's a big one. All right, here we go. Ba'azacha yismach melech. In your strength, the king will be happy. Now, which king, we don't know yet. Ki tekadmenu birchot. So who is doing that? The king's going to be happy, and God gives him what he wants. Okay, so the actor here is, this is God giving to the king what he needs. But it says, ki tekadmenu birchot. He will to advance to him blessing, good blessing of the good. Tashit l'rosho ateret paz. Now this is very, very important. The idea of paz, ateret, we talked about that a lot of times. Atrenu, he will encompass me. So the idea that the overall, if we think again, the image of God coming down, Moses going up, and a meeting on the Sinai there, as symbolizing another thing we talked about, the kiss, the pure kiss, without impurities. So this process of identifying, totally believing in the coming action fits very well into the Breslov mentality. You have the same thing in Exodus. The east wind, Ruach Kadem, the east, the forward part is like where the sun comes up. Now that's the leading part of the action here. Ki tekadmenu birchot. Another way, that's also Aristotle's idea, the actuality again preceding the potentiality, that the pure moment of pure action, the pure word of God, the message that underlies the whole dream work process here, is like a blessing. It says here literally, Ki tekadmenu birchot tov. And he will advance him with a blessing of the good. The good, that's exactly the idea. The good and the God and the encompassing Word of God. So Plato here is right on the action of the Psalms, and the Psalm is talking Plato, at least the way I'm reading it. And here's another beautiful metaphor. Tashit l'rosho ateret paz. He will place on his head a crown of fine gold. Now, if we think of this person working up on the right side, your right side of the tree of life, going up to Chesed, Chochmah, and then finally to Keter, where it all comes together, supposedly out of this world or something, a very high spiritual place. So the idea of paz, fine gold, doesn't make much sense. But if you think of the word pazaz, the idea of pazaz, lefazez, that's a dance, lively, frolic, magical, a kind of a spirited way of living. They say something needs pizzazz. It needs, it's a populist expression. It needs pizzazz. It needs some kind of magical. Another way of talking about it is the elf in the self in Gestalt therapy. That when a person or the actor on top of his material getting creative ideas with his eyes flashing and totally alive, making these dead forms that he worked on in rehearsals and dredged out of his life into creative live forms, that part of yourself that's capable of being on top of yourself, Kant would call it maybe your conscience, that heavenly part of yourself that's like an idea in the mind of God, where the pure ideas drip down from, all that stuff. So that's the idea of this paz, fine gold, which in Tashit l'rosho ateret paz. So God puts on, by giving this action, the person identifies with a coming action, with the truth that's emerging here. So as though God gives the truth, and the person gets that truth as a crown, and then identifies, becomes one with those pure ideas. He becomes like the elf in himself, and is in a pure creative state, able to negotiate and deal with the major problems. So, for example, if it's a problem of saying goodbye to a dead mother and working on a mourning process, so that this elf in the self is somehow or other strong enough and encompassing enough and in touch with the truth enough so that it's able to deal with this very painful personal stuff, lead the person to totally express it in feelings, explosion of actions and feelings. All right, so this is a way of epitomizing the total process here, the fulfillment of the process, whether you're talking about the messianic now, this idea of the Mashiach now, as a person as the inner Mashiach himself, or if you're talking about Plato, the idea of anamnesis, going back to the pure ideas from whence we came, and our personalities. Either way, that's the pure gold here. All right, it's a crown of pure gold. Keter, the crown. And if you do that later on in the same psalm, Timtza yadacha lechol oivecha. Your hand, your right hand, will be sufficient to deal with all your enemies. Yeminacha timtza sonecha. Your right hand will be sufficient for your enemies. Tishitemo ketanur esh et panecha. Adonai ba'po yivalem v'tochlem esh. So through your right hand, through you being sufficient to deal with the situation here, God is expressing his anger, and will swallow up in a fire way, all the things that are blocking your action here, as long as you identify with the action. And then God will help you will somehow partake in the process of negating those negations. The next few lines down here. V'meitarecha techonen al pneihem, ruma Adonai va'uzecha nashira v'nizam lecha gvoratecha. All right, this is a very important one also. V'meitarecha techonen al pneihem. Now, literally, and the way it's usually translated is, with your string on your bow, you're going to get ready to give it to them, give them what for. But that's kind of an infantile way of looking at this thing here. Remember, the word meitar has built in it the letters yeta, which are the letters of excess. So the key here is the excess. Because the pure ideas coming down from God are strong, creative ideas, so this way that the person in his life overwhelms the games and negates the games. So it's like the actor is getting creative ideas on top of his material, making his dead forms into live forms. The meitarecha, with your excesses, you will prepare to face them. Techonen al pneihem. And here's the same idea here, continued, giving God credit for that. Ruma Adonai ba'uzecha. Rise up, O God, in your power. Nashira nizamara gvoratecha. So if God rises up, that's like saying that let this action that's pulling me forward be very, very strong, so that I don't have to give up. Somehow let me have enough faith to be able to keep going. For example, if it's dealing with mother who died, whatever it is, don't let me cop out on don't let me cop out. And then the explosion into the pure action, totalist, remember there are four major explosions here in Gestalt therapy: anger, grief, sadness, joy, orgasm. So that explosion into this something like those four things is the example of Nizamara. We'll sing out. Nariya, we will sing out. In your power. So God rises up, it's as though saying this pure action, this actuality of the completed action rises up within us as a very strong possibility, pulling us forward, and allows us to really do it, even if it's do it wrong, but do it strong, but at least we do it. Okay, so that's the idea of the pause, pure gold, as a fulfillment of either the Aristotelian or the Platonic way of looking at the action, in the messianic now, or in the amnesis of the pure moments. Okay, that was 21. All right, number 24. 24, skip 23, 20, a couple of them there. L'Adonai haaretz u'mlo'o. To God, the world and the fullness of it. Fullness, we've talked about that before. The pure ideas coming down from the macrocosm that flood, Noah's flood, that flood the dead forms and bring them back to life, make them life forms. Table v'yoshveva, the world and those that live in it. Kihu al yamayim yisada. Remember, water is a symbol of awareness, pure ideas, starting down from the macrocosm into the microcosm. Remember, there's The alchemy is water to earth to air to fire. Water is the flow of heavenly dew or ideas. It becomes too much deduction. Everything freezes up into earth, which is all the opposites. The big matrix, frozen matrix there, and then the void comes out of that. The empty space all appears. The air. If you like Paracelsus, a version of that sort of thing, the German alchemist back in the 16th century, around the time that Luria was developing the Kabbalah in Israel, in Palestine, his version was that when something rots, he was a chemist, so when something rots, the bubbles appear there, and in the bubbles, the new life is, the maggots are formed. So he looked at it from a biological point of view, whereas Luria looked at the same sort of thing and said, oh, it's Tzimtzum, it's the ego contracts, God contracts and creates an empty space. So where Paracelsus or so rotting flesh, Luria, so God contracting. All right, but they both had similar idea at the same time. Okay. Oops. All right. So where were we now? Yes. Kihu al Yamin. Yisada. Because God established the world on this flow of ideas, the ocean of waters. Al Naharot, rivers. On rivers, He will prepare it. Mi yaleh bahar Adonai umi yakum b'makom kadsho. Who's going to go up on the mountain of God? So who's going to be the inner Moses? The Moses. And each person, it's this process of inductive logic we're talking about here. This total completed dialectic that goes both sides. Remember, there was the other one we talked about where a person sets up his own mountain, inner mountain. And God lets him do it, but it turns out to be a house of cards rather than a house of God. It collapses. But this one doesn't collapse, because who's going to go up there? The only one that can go up there is this pure action. The Metatron, the inner Moses, the inner Jesus, the inner Buddha, or whatever it is, that can complete the interaction that's in touch with the overall process here. Now here's a very important metaphor. New one here. Su'u sharim lashechem binasu pitchei olam. Lift your gates. No. Su'u sharim lashechem. O ye gates, lift your heads up and be lifted up. And be lifted up the entrances, the eternal entrances. V'yavo melech hakavod, and the king of the glory, the king of the kavod, will come along. Okay, so we have the idea of the inner Moses, the king, the Mashiach, the Messiah. It's in each person. I'm not talking about any Messiah in particular cult. I'm just talking about the inner Messiah of each one of us when we're working in the here and now, in the messianic now. So there's something in the prayers, in the everyday prayers. The Chokhmah Poter Sharim. So the Sharim, the gates, are a symbol of, the way I see it, of a place where there's a conflict, two sides, and it's on the left side of the tree of life, the side of either understanding or judgments, and along comes the right side, the idea, the pure holistic idea that can open or encompass or negate that opposite there. So there's the idea right here, built in here. It's saying, let's, O ye opposites, lift yourselves up, become really prominent. And that's the idea of going to the extremes. If you're a Brecht lover, or if you're doing Gestalt therapy, you want to ferret out, discover what are the major splits in your personality, and make them good and clear with the two chairs going back and forth. Work yourselves up to the place where you have an opportunity to go inside, to move from the context stage to the withdrawal stage and get the new idea. But without that, without having the real splits to work with, it's harder to get to the new ideas in the void. Of course, then it becomes a different kind of process. Rather than with a Platonic process, it becomes more an Aristotelian process of integrating opposites and with a kind of rational way, where it's a synthesis, you know, getting one side to understand the other. But the more, the aspect of the dialectical thinking that's more close to you, closest to the Psalms and the way I see it, and also to the Exodus, is the Platonic version, which emphasizes not the rational centering, but rather the getting to the splits and going into the void, in other words, the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. So here we're saying, let's really do a lot of contact and withdrawal to get these gates, these splits really prominent, and they open up the eternal gates, entrances, and then the Melech, the king of the contact boundary, the king of, in other words, the person, the protagonist here, the Metatron figure, the person that's doing the therapy, the actor on top of his material, can then come along with the pure ideas and get the new ideas from the void and move the process up to the next level in a dialectic by negating the negations. So first you've got to get some really good negations to negate, and the way to do that is to get the opposites to be very extreme, and those are the gates. Bring them up, in other words, bring them to the foreground of consciousness and strong gestalts so that they're available to be worked on. Okay, and that's what you do in the Brechtian theater. The actor gets his extremes as extreme as possible, so he really looks like a junk collage of all kinds of opposites that make no sense at all. And then he, as the actor, on top of that pile of garbage, that junk collage, brings it all to life in a kind of a miraculous way, if the process is done correctly. All right. So that takes care of 424. 25 now. This one is more or less a repetition of a lot of things. I'll just plow through it quickly. Adricheni ba amitecha. Guide me in your truth. Lamdeni ki ata Elohai Yishi. You are the God of my salvation, so teach me. Potacha kiviti kol hayom. I'm hoping for you all the time. That's the idea of identifying with the coming solution. Having faith that it will happen. Zachor chachamecha Adonai v'chasadecha ki me'olam hem. In other words, remember, whenever we ask God to remember us, we're doing some anamnesis ourselves. We're remembering, going back to this pure ideal state of anamnesis, pure ideas. So what this means here is, the way I understand it, is Zachor rachamecha, remember your compassion, the loving, pure contact part to experience, the pure ideas when they really flow, and your grace, your flow of pure ideas, ki me'olam hema, because they are from eternity. This is the origin. This is the direct reference to the Platonic idea of anamnesis, that from this pure patriarchal images, for example, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that serves as the pure Platonic ideas that support Judaism, bring it most tie it in with the dialectical tradition. There it is. We want to remember that as our process of not forgetting, as part of our process of going back to the basic elements in our own life, of our own opposites and new ideas coming out of the void, our own thesis, antithesis, synthesis. Okay? Tov yashar Adonai, al ken yoreh chataim baderech. Again, if the Tov yashar Adonai, God is the straight, when the dialectic is straight, without kinks, without self-interruptions, that's the good, we get to the good. And in that case, yoreh chataim baderech. And that means if it is straight, then the sinners will be taught on the process he will teach, so if a person is working authentically and they Gestalt work, and then they will be, they're on the way of the process doing the Torah, the truth search, then they will get taught. Yadrech anavim b'mishpat. Again, this is we talked about. He will teach, he will instruct the humble ones in judgment. In other words, judgment equals, remember, aesthetic judgment. The integrated judgment, which ties together the left and the right with a proper balance, and not just the right side with the opposites, but the opposites encompassed by the the pure intuitive ideas on the other side. So that's the level of prophecy, the level of sanity according to Gestalt therapy. If we're balanced in the middle way, then we're anavim, yadrech anavim. In other words, he will teach the humble ones. If we allow ourselves to not know and get to the void long enough to discover the new ideas coming from the void, then we'll get to the proper judgments, the proper balance. Hu yotzi mereshet raglai. God will take us out from the reshet. Now there's the key word. The reshet is the net of deductive thinking, the matrix that we're stuck in when we start our Gestalt work. And the intuitive work we do with Gestalt, the awareness is, if we allow ourselves to follow the unevolving action, that action will lead us to be released from the matrix. Penei elai v'chaneni yachid v'ani ani. Again, turn to me, God, and give me grace, because I am an individual and poor. Ani. That's the idea of the poor theater from Grotowski, if you're into that. In other words, minimizing ego. It's just involving yourself totally in the struggle to deal with the moments of truth and the physical action there, or whatever action it is, and that makes you humble. You're giving up your ego trips, and you're separating yourself. Yachid, turn to me and give me grace because I'm alone. I've separated myself from the net, from the ego trips, from the system of dead ideas. And that takes care of that one. That was number 15. No, 25. Okay, what are we doing so far? 20 minutes left in this. We're up to number 29. Havul Adonai, this is one that most people know from Friday night in services. Havul Adonai kavod shemo, ishtakavu Adonai b'hadrat kodesh, kol Adonai almayim, el hadakavod yir'im. Right? Havul Adonai kavod shemo. Let us bring to God, or go to God with the glory of the kavod, that's the tangibility with the contact boundary of naming Him. Again, that's what we're doing in Gestalt therapy. If we think of each moment of awareness as another aspect of naming God, and doing the contact boundary area is the naming. So let's keep going until we get towards God with this process of naming these moments of awareness. Humble ourselves to the ongoing dialectic here, identify with the coming solution. Hadrat Kodesh, and that's an important word, Hadrat Kodesh, holy beauty. What is beauty? It's a very important thing. This is the Platonic idea of beauty here. By allowing the oneness to guide the manyness in the process here, identifying with the coming solution. That ties in directly with Marsilio Ficino's idea of aesthetics and Italian humanism back in I think it's 16th century. And the example that I like to cite from that is also the one that Michael Chekhov cites in his lecture about the Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa, remember, there's a whole bunch of details, and there's also a kind of a fog a haze that covers the whole picture. So the way, in his commentary on Plato's Symposium, Ficino points it out that the oneness of the, or maybe it was somewhere else I got it, but yeah, I think I might have got it from some history of art. But anyway, the idea that the haze is the oneness, and all the details of the landscape and the woman's face, you know, are the manyness. So we have the manyness, like also Impressionism. You know, you have Monet's idea of a lake or something, with all the waters sparkling and the lilies kind of dissolve there. The lilies are the world, and the oneness, the fog that kind of melts everything and softens it and makes it vague, is the oneness. And so the one and the many balanced together is this kind of pure Platonic idea of the parts and the wholeness being properly balanced. And that's Hadrat Kodesh, beauty of holiness, the holy beauty. So the message there is, Ishtachavu l'Adonai b'Hadrat Kodesh. Humble ourselves to God. So in the beauty, holy of to be beauty in a holy, beautiful in a holy way, by letting our individual qualities be subservient to the overall action in our life, the overall truth search in our life. Kol Adonai alamayim el hakavod hirim. We've heard that before. The voice of God is the waters. Remember, the awareness, intuition stuff is the voice of God. El kavod hirim. El Kabod, the God that the performer on top, if you think of it that way, the macrocosm ideas coming down that illuminate the earthly forms, they make the forms shake, cause them to shake, the God of that contact boundary causes these things that are context to shake. It's not that the rock shake. It's not that for example, if I'm an actor working with a cup, it's not that the cup's going to shake because it'll make me look like I have Parkinson's or something like that. It's rather that what I do with the cup in that scene will be illuminated by the truthful action that serves the super-objective of the play, and that kind of poetic truth will illuminate. That's coming from the pure idea that the actor is getting work properly in the here and now. Will illuminate what the actor does with that cup, so that the audience will find that cup involved in something, a situation which somehow is believable because it's somehow part of the overall truth that the audience is getting from that play. Okay? All right. That's 29. We have a little more of 29 here, one more piece. Uvehechalo kula omer kavod. Adonai lamavul Yeshav, Yeshiv Adonai Melech Leolam. This is the same old stuff again. First of all, Uvechalo Kula Omer Kavod. Kavod is in God's temple. Everything expresses kavod. Kavod is the contact boundary. Remember, we're talking about this is a phenomenological way of looking at reality. It's not saying that the lamp itself is saturated with divine light. It's saying that the way that people relate to, the person relates to that lamp makes it as though it is saturated with divine light. And so in the God's temple, which is the bubble of awareness which a person is projecting, everything says contact boundary. It's not just what it is, it's what the person makes it. You might say it's like wishful thinking. You know, wouldn't it be nice if that lamp was part of some truth search that I'm doing now in this, making this video? That's what I'm hoping. You know, if I got you guys out there hypnotized enough so you're going to believe that what I'm saying, then that lamp that I'm looking at now, and I've talked about the pinkness of the lamp, you know, it should be part of some kind of a glorious message of truth that I'm giving you over here. But of course, if you're not buying my shtick, then it's just an ordinary old lamp, and then the whole metaphor doesn't work anymore. It's no longer God's temple. It's just it's just a piece of metal. That's all it is. So whether you're an idealist or is up to you, you know. Okay, this Kabbalah, this kind of stuff is for idealists. It's not for practical cause and effect. 2 and 2 equals 4 people. All right. Uveicha lo kulo omer kavod. In his God's temple, everything says contact boundary. Adonai lamabul yashav. Now there's the Noah's flood, right? God looks out saying, boy, what a mess. And so he floods the world. It's the same idea. In the Chabad they talk about the Or Makif, the Or Mamaleh. Our habits, our everyday lives can be simply what they are. Biology, protoplasm moving around, electronic devices working. Or it could be that these devices and protoplasm are illuminated by some kind of a truth search, which ties in with this kind of dialectical thinking. So, Adonai lamabul yashav, to the extent that a person is, in a sense, identifying with God's word or the message or the Platonic ideas that supposedly illuminate everything, to that extent, it's like a flood. It's like flood. The fullness of the world is overwhelming the dead forms and making them into live forms. Another way they talk about in the Kabbalah is engraving. The emanations from God are like engraving into the dead matter. And so God in that sense is like the performer to the extent that, or anyone, it's the extent that he is allowing himself to be this Metatron function all over again, the truth searcher involved in the actuality of his life, the actions. To that extent, he's the king over this inheritance that God is giving him. The world becomes my inheritance, and me as the king of the world impose my illuminated mind, trip onto it. Okay. Of course, for example, right now, the Ukrainians are not so happy about the Russians imposing their idea of truth onto their territory there. So sometimes it gets to be two ideas of truth fighting it out, and then you have to become a Hegelian and look at the overall process of history as on a more grandiose social level rather than individual level, and say that, well, it's necessary that 50,000 Russians and 50,000 Ukrainians are going to die now in order to resolve that thing, so that the new idea of the Russified Ukraine or the Ukrainian Russia will somehow emerge out of that in a dialectical process. But I'm not dealing with all those complications. I'm just dealing with this work as it relates to my work, which is dealing with the performers, dealing with Gestalt therapy, healing people. But how it applies to other aspects of your life or my life, it's not that I'm disagreeing. I'm simply not even dealing with it at all, like an ostrich with his head in the sand. Okay, I'm up to 30. I've got 10 minutes. Let's see. Number 30, Psalm number 30 here. First sentence says, Rega ba'po chaim b'ritzono. Rega ba'po chaim b'ritzono. That ties in with this other dialectic. Remember, there's the descent and the ascent, the rhythm of contact and withdrawal. I start off with I'm aware of this and aware of that, and I end up eventually with things kind of clustered around two opposite strong gestalts with a strong conflict, the void opening up between them. Okay? And that's the moment of so I'm feeling like I'm lost there. The two opposites are opening up, there I am in a void. So that's the descent part of it. And then, in the void, if I close my eyes, I get a new image, and that leads me to the new idea, which opens up the next cycle, the next world, the next monad. Okay, so a moment of feeling frustrated and tormented and lost there is necessary to allow the new idea to come out of the void. There got to be a void, first of all, if this is going to work in the kind of void-oriented way rather than a rational centering process of an Aristotelian logic. So rega ba'po, a moment of his anger, chaim b'ritzono. Chaim is life, new life, in his will, God's will. So the new idea comes out of the void is the message of the continuing message, the flow of new ideas coming out of the void. And as long as I allow myself to suffer the impasse that leads up to it, then sweat that one out, then I'll be available to get the new ideas. But of course, a lot of people avoid, in our work we tend to avoid things, and so the job of the therapist in that case is to spot the people that are avoiding things and encourage them to not avoid them so that they can be available for the next idea that's going to come out of the void. All right? Ba'erev yalin bechi v'laboker lina. In the evening he will go to sleep, crying, and in the morning he will have joy, singing and joy. That's exactly the same idea. The evening here in this case refers to the moment of contact reaching its impasse. The end of the day, you might say, the end of the day, because the day is the contact boundary part, and then going into the void, and then somehow in the night, in the morning, in the night, which is the void, the daydream, comes a new idea, and that, so a person starts off like the sun coming up in the morning, like the room coming out of the chuppah, you know, started ready for another cycle, ready for another trip across the heavens there. All right. Vani amarti b'shalvi ba'lemut li'olam. And I said in my peace and my complacency, I will never stumble. Adonai b'ratzonecha emadeta laharari oz. And God, in your strength, you set up for me my mountain, a strong mountain. You set up for me, you let my mountain be a strong mountain. So in other words, this is the idea of self-satisfaction we get from our games. For example, if we're loaded with money and we see that everything flows, you know, wow, I can buy this, I can buy that, I can buy that. It's like for a while God is just letting me set up my own money mountain here and enjoy that. But at the same time, Histarta panecha. What that means is God is, you've hidden your face. So God it's like giving a person enough rope to hang himself. God is giving you a rope to hang yourself. You hid your face long enough for me to build up my own unholy mountains here. But rather, the idea is that you want to be like Moses and be on the holy mountain, where we're not serving our ego hunger, we're serving we're not serving our games here, we're serving something more authentic. All right? Hafachta mispedi lamacholi, pitachta saki va ta'azreini simcha. Again, hafachta mispedi lamacholi. You transform my mourning into dance. Pitachta saki, you open my sackcloth and you dress me up in happiness. So, following the previous thing, so a guy sets up his holy money mountain here, for example, and he ends up more and more in trouble. Things go wrong, he's got to start swindling to make more money, and might end up in jail, might end up losing the love of his kids because of he's too much focused on his business. All kinds of things could happen from having too much money and not having properly balanced the money with other things in life. So, it becomes like a straitjacket. And a person is basically in mourning for his life. That makes me think of that line in Chekhov's Three Sisters, I think. A woman says, oh, I'm in mourning for my life. Afachta mispedi lamacholi. So the person is saying, this is after the therapy now. I'm so happy that you have turned my mourning, my misery, my straitjacket into a dance. And here I am dancing again. Pitachta psakiv ta'arzeni, you dress me up in happiness. This is after the person has, this is the idea of Moses, V'yashir Moses. Moses, after the whole, who symbolizes the whole dialectic in the Exodus story, is dancing at the end. Oh, Thank you so much. You did all this. You did it. You turned our morning into dancing, and everybody's dancing. Okay, so that takes care of 30. We'll stop here.